Welcome to Tailoring Talk with your host, Roberto Rivilla, bespoke tailor and owner of Roberto Rivilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. It's the podcast where I take you on a journey around the globe. We'll either be talking tailoring or I'll be tailoring the talk. We'll meet a host of amazing human beings, creators, self-starters, performers, and more to learn about their journeys and lessons they've learned. They share their top tips and life hacks to guide you on the path to success. Please support the show by subscribing. It helps so much if you take a few seconds to rate and review. My guest today is an authority in career transition, and she's also the creator of the Career Velocity System, a comprehensive solution that helps leaders and execs map out a transition strategy to last throughout their career, constantly folding in fresh, relevant ways for her clients to accelerate their career transition success. She helps leaders position themselves as authoritative problem solvers and unique solutions providers, or a business in a business. Here to equip you with the skills you need for an effective career transition plan, please join me in welcoming Gina Riley to the Tailoring Talk Show. Gina, how are you?
I am awesome. Thanks for that nice introduction.
You're so welcome. Sorry if my voice is a bit weird, but I've had this COVID flu hybrid thing that's been doing the rounds recently. It absolutely knocked me on my back this week, and so it's just I think this strain of the virus affects the connection between your brain and your mouth, because I seem to be thinking what I want to say, and then it seems to be coming out like a few seconds later. So forgive me for any weirder than usual stuff that comes from me today. But Gina, welcome and congratulations on being my first guest from Portland, Oregon. How is Portland today?
Portland is sunny, so that is noteworthy.
Awesome. And London has been dark, cloudy, and rainy all day. But the moment you joined the call, the sun came out and the clouds parted. So
No, I think it's a St. Patrick's Day treat. That's what we're going to go for. I lived in England for a while. I'm very used to cloud cover here and cloud cover there.
Oh, cool. Whereabouts were you?
My husband worked in Swindon and we lived in the Cotswolds in Tetbury.
Oh, so Swindon, dive, but Cotswold, beautiful.
Amazing. We were only a couple of miles away from Highgrove, so it's quite a posh area.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I've actually not been to the Cotswolds yet.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but people do that within their own country. There's loads of great places that people that aren't from where they are, you are, they are, we are, have been to, and then they ask you about it, and you're like, I've not been there at all. Oh, there are places even in London that I've not been to. It's because I kind of go past all of this stuff every day and or whatever. But yeah. I'm sorry you left. Our country is poorer without you. And that is very true at the moment. Sorry.
I'll come visit. I'll come visit.
Please. We need some abundance back over here. Anyway, Gina, so one thing that has come up a lot over the last kind of 18 months, 2 years, as we've climbed out of that whole horrible pandemic situation, has been career transition at different levels. And different people have different views of career transition. For some people it just means, oh, you're retiring, and for other people it's huge change. It could be transitioning from something they were doing in a certain specialism moving into something completely different. It could be transitioning levels, so within the same organization, but going from a general role moving up to a leadership role, or moving aside, or even moving down. So it's a more complex subject than people think, and it is a huge deal. So we're going to talk a bit about that today. But first of all, you and I have only just met in the last few minutes. Our listeners have only just met you in the last few minutes. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you kind of got to where you are today.
But tell me about yourself. Got to be ready for that.
I know. Sorry, it's that question.
All good. Quickly, my background is in human resources, staffing and recruiting. In my early days, I worked for about a decade at Intel Corporation, where I cut my teeth in the corporate world. I got a master's degree in whole systems design. And that was actually while I was living in England. I traveled once a month back and forth to Seattle to be a part of a cohort. So I finished my degree, became an HR business partner at Intel, and then moved into training and development. And my whole career has really been about helping people communicate more effectively, to build stronger relationships, to get what they want in life, to be understood. That's kind of the core of like what I'm all about. And so when I ended up transitioning later in my career, I took a big career break to raise my two sons. And then I went back to work working for an executive search firm, Talents Group here in Portland, Oregon. We do nationwide and worldwide executive level search. I do interview skills training for that company inside of corporate. So I teach hiring managers how to craft effective questions and assess talent. And then I had this calling to create a career transition program. It's a 9-step model that systematically takes people through what they need to do to set themselves up to make the career transition. At the leadership level, what I am finding with most of my clients, it's a good 9 months. It's like a 7 to 12-month window before they really land. And why? Imagine in your mind as you listen to this that each organization is like a triangle, right? So at the top of the triangle, there's less jobs. It takes longer to find the right one for you, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So if I'm going for a first line role, there's a lot more of them. But if you're at the leadership level, it's going to take a concerted, precise type of effort to locate. I call it like the needle in a haystack. You're a needle. Where's your haystack?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, totally. But this brings to mind when I was younger, before I got into tailoring, I was trying to please my parents and get a proper career. So one of the things that I dabbled in was accountancy, and I worked for Ford Motor Company for a couple of years, and I was doing their kind of management accountancy program where you work and learn at the same time. And I remember sitting with my supervisor, Roy, and I said to him, I don't know how it came up in conversation, but I think I was probably thinking about my own career path and what I might want to achieve there. And I said to him, have you never wanted to like move kind of up in the organization because you've been in this supervisor role for like 25, 30 years? And he said, no. He said, I'm really happy here. I'm comfortable, good salary. I've sat at this same desk. Yeah, the problem is that if you want to move up at this company, you got to wait for the next person to die. And I was in that moment. I looked out his window and I thought, no, I can't do that. I can't sit around here waiting like for my entire life to be able to kind of get up there.
Well, and hoping somebody might die so you can have a more fulfilling job.
Yeah, exactly. So I literally wrote funny enough, you mentioned Intel. So I wrote to tech companies because that's my other passion. And I went and I managed to get a job with a systems builder. So I transitioned out of accountancy into working for a systems builder. And then I started in consumer. But then within a year, I then transitioned into corporate sales. And then from there, I think after 4 years, they had new management take over that bled the company dry, lots of golf days and stuff like that. And then I had to transition again, and then I got into fashion, and here we are 20 years later.
Cool.
So for me, it's like when people say transition, it always takes me back to that time. And I absolutely got what you were saying about the triangle and about how when you get into the upper atmosphere of an organization, the air gets thinner and the opportunities get thinner as well.
There's just less. It doesn't mean there's not an opportunity for you, but what it does mean is you have to control your career trajectory, you have to control the momentum. And there's many ways of doing that.
Yeah. But you see, a lot of people they don't get a handle on their career trajectory. Some people do. Some people where, I guess they've had their whole kind of lives crafted from, when they were born to education and so on. And then there are a lot of other people like me that from working class backgrounds that have just basically had to kind of muddle, fall, trip, stumble our way through lives. And then, you know, we kind of just sort of have a self-aware moment every other day and we're like, oh, I'm here. How did I get here? Oh, that's how I got here. Where am I going? I'm actually not sure. And so when they get to the precipice of career transition, now whether that's been forced, well, most of the time it's because it's been forced upon them. They haven't planned for it.
Right.
Suddenly, yeah, they're standing at the edge of a cliff, right? And they're looking over into the abyss and it's like, what the hell? So
Oh, yeah.
how do you start to take someone and just help them to roll back a little bit, stretch time for them, and then get them kind of on that path? You know what I'm trying to ask you, don't you?
Yes, your imagery actually is really beautiful because let's just take a profile of some of the people I work with, because I'm working with people that are mid-career. They're not all like VP, CEO title. I have some mid-career people too. But one of the profiles is the leader who's been at that company, that Intel, the Nike, the big companies. And they started their career there when they were like 22 years old. And now they're just over 50 and there's a layoff, right? And
Yeah.
this is what happens. They get a package, they get a standard layoff package, and they go work with an outplacement company that has a standardized process of helping people, resume development, coaching, online coursework, and so on. And it is helpful. And it's really great that those companies are paying for that benefit. They don't pay a lot per person though, because it's standardized, it's not customized. Here's the thing that's really damaging for people that are at those leadership levels and they haven't been working on their network is they have a resume developed and then they're told, start networking. That's the first thing they're told. And they go, okay, you're the expert. Well, what happens is they haven't actually developed their storytelling. They don't know how to explain what they're targeting now. They don't know how to explain their unique value proposition. And they don't even have 5 top stories sharpened that they can tell that explains the value that they can deliver, the results they know how to get. So your question is, how do I help stretch out time? How cool is that? Is we slow it down and we start with the person. So I'm working with people week on week and I work with them up to a year, but our first 8 weeks are crucial. And the first week, what we're doing, I use a tool called the UMAP Career Profile Assessment. Anybody can take this. You can go online, myumap.com. Anyway, it gives me their top strengths from StrengthsFinder, their values. What do they value? Their motivated skills and their burnout skills, and then a personality assessment. 4 assessments in one. It tells me how they do what they do, why they do what they do with their values, what they like to do, and then who they are with their personality. We start to build a synthesis, a narrative about them. Now they're like in touch with that core of who they are. The next week, what we're doing is we're building another synthesis about their leadership approach. And we all have a leadership approach, even if we don't have direct reports. So think of the mid-career person who may have a small team or they have to influence cross-functionally. They still have to have an approach that they're describing. How do you influence people, right? So the third week, what I'm doing is I'm pulling out their career story and I'm building a synthesis for them so that we can take all those 3 weeks of work and we're building that tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Because what is that leader going to get asked when they start knocking on doors or calling and networking? They're going to be asked, okay, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. And what are you looking to do? I'm telling you, these people that I'm working with that are just over 50 are like, haven't thought about it. And what do? Ramble. for 20 minutes. So if they get they're granted a 30-minute window of time with someone who's giving their time to them to listen and help, and they spend 20 just talking, you burn out the connection.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're not nice people and they won't talk to you again, but this is what I've observed is these people are out there told, go network, when they don't even know what they're going to talk about.
Yeah. We're going to come on. I'm really glad you mentioned networking thing because I want to talk about that in a little while. But I just want to kind of stop here because what you were describing there to me, and again, as you get to know me, it's probably why I do what I do for a living. But I'm very visual. My listeners will be rolling their eyes right now. Yeah, I'm gonna tell her. Okay, just brace yourselves. So it's like Disney in my brain. So pretty much everything I do when I'm talking, there's some cartoon animation going on in my head. Anyway,
Cool.
so what I was thinking of when you were talking about all of that was what I think what you're hitting on there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is helping people to work out what their superpowers are and get really comfortable and get that knowledge ingrained in their brains so that when someone says to them, tell me about yourself, they can say, I was born on Krypton. Unfortunately, the planet was about to explode, so I was sent to Earth as a baby, and the power of the Earth's sun made me, shoot lasers out my eyes, and I have the strength of 500 men, and I can move the planet around, whatever. I don't know. But it means that they have their and also it crosses into personal branding as well,
All of
right?
it.
Yeah.
It's an
But
absolute
these are things
intersection.
that I mean, I'm 46 now. Can't believe I just said that out loud. I don't feel like my wife was here. She'd tell you he's
You
got
don't look
dementia.
it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and mentally I'm about 12. I still have an Xbox and a PlayStation. But it's only in the last year or so that even I've been starting to have these conversations and start to think about it. I've never thought about it before.
Yeah. Oh, we
And
should do your UMAP.
oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Um, but that's right? It's taking people, helping them to
Yeah.
learn, discover what their superpowers are, and
Mm-hmm.
then teach them how they tell people that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important and it's empowering too. I mean, Robert, when you can like really go and laser in on here's my unique value proposition, that's very powerful because now the person listening to you who you want to help you can better help you or connect you with someone who can better help you. So if you're clear, you can't show up and talk to other mature adults and expect them to work it out for you, right? That's a
Yeah.
problem. So you need to arrive with some idea. Now, not everyone knows what they're actually going to target, especially when they're confronted with a layoff, for example. So you have informational conversations absolutely for the express purposes of gathering information that helps inform your process. Then you can kind of keep in touch with those people that are willing to grant you their time and let them know your progress. And when you're ready for an ask, the doors are now open. But it's on you to do that homework. Not one person's going to have that perfect answer for you. You've got to
Yeah.
be working it out.
Yeah. When you're pulling, the kind of superpower, well, you already said it, didn't you? Because it's about discovering what they're passionate about and what they enjoy the most. Because most people will
Mhm.
start rambling off like, well, I've been here, I was at Intel for 28 years and I outsold whoever and I achieved this and then I built this department and we managed to do a successful marketing campaign for the 386 processor. There'll be my younger listeners listening to this that'll be Googling a lot of this stuff. They wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about.
I
Right.
did the hiring ramp for Pentium processor here in Oregon. I hired hundreds of people coming right out of college for that ramp. So maybe they'll remember the Pentium. I
Oh
don't
my God. I mean, I remember when the Pentium processor came, it was like a revelation for us as
Yeah.
salespeople, but then for our customers, because it was like you can, things that took you 3 days to do before, you can now do them in 2.5 days. It was great.
Yeah.
Um, So,
Well, here, one thing that you said though is yes, we need to tap into like what we're passionate about. The cool thing about Strengths Finder, which is a part of the UMAP process, is it's our natural talents.
yeah,
So it's the natural things that are how we go about doing what we do. And when you learn what your top five are, you realize because over 33 million people around the globe have taken it, it makes you 1 in 33 million. That's what Gallup StrengthsFinder tells us statistically. So for the people that are feeling dogged down, they're feeling depressed, they're worried about their future, and they're like, I don't know why I'm special. Just that one thing alone is very empowering. And if you
yeah,
can get stories around it, now you can explain when you hire me, as a leader, I'm going to show up with these abilities naturally. You
yeah,
can't get away from them. We're born with them.
yeah. And when faced with forced transition, armed with that knowledge, I'm going to use myself as an example again, as I always do. But so pandemic hits, we get shut down
Mm-hmm.
because we're classed as retail. So we're
Mm-hmm.
closed. Suddenly, I'm like, I don't know what the future's going to hold. One idiot client of mine told me that people like me weren't going to be needed anymore. People aren't going to be buying suits ever again, etc., etc. Like 2 months. It took me 2 months to work out the answer that I should have given, which was, "Are you going to be walking around naked anytime soon?" No. So there's always going to be a need. Anyway,
Yeah.
so so suddenly I have no income, and so I basically just signed up for whoever was hiring just to bring some extra money in. So I was doing, like food deliveries and stuff. And that was okay because it kept me busy and it also gave me some thinking and breathing space, right, to try and figure things out. And it all turned out fine in the end. But when I was having initial conversations with some of my clients, who I'd worked with for many, many years, and told them that I was just a little bit worried, and I don't know if my business is going to reopen, and I might have to try and find a
Right.
different career. They then started to tell me what my superpowers were. So one of my clients who was a
Oh,
management consultant, so he said, listen, if the what really hits the fan and you do need to shut down completely and you need to go find something else, give
yeah.
me a call. Because he said, we'll be hiring. And the thing we need is people like you who are used to dealing with high net worth individuals. You're very
Mm-hmm.
personable. You can talk to anyone. And the other thing that you're great at is that you're
Mm-hmm.
fantastic at kicking in doors. You manage to get yourself in places that my guys would never even know where to begin getting into
Right.
places, right? I have
Yeah.
security passes for some of the biggest office buildings in the city. Like, even I can't work out why I have them, but somehow I've made a connection somewhere that's helped me get right. um
Yeah. Yeah.
so that suddenly was my first taste of, okay, if I'm going to have to move into something else, suddenly my
Mm-hmm.
clients are telling me what it is that I'm really good at, and not one of them's mentioned that, oh, by the way, you make great clothes. um so that was really
Because
interesting, but that was
that's the product of what you do, but what they're acknowledging is how you do it. And other
exactly,
people, there are other people who have those talents, but clearly the people they're working with, they're noticing a difference in you.
yeah,
And maybe that's perseverance, diligence, maybe it's the ability to connect the dots in ways that other people cannot.
exactly. Now, I was thinking also of Up in the Air when you were talking about layoffs,
Yeah,
right? Um, I love that movie so much, but I think it's also it's more about the chemistry between Anna Kendrick and George Clooney. Um,
so
but
good.
um,
Yeah.
but this is where the networking side of things is so important, and I think is
Mhm.
you're probably going to tell me is so important to do as early as you can, rather than at the moment where something happens and suddenly you're forced to do
Yeah,
it. And the biggest platform for business networking nowadays is LinkedIn.
100%.
How how do you recommend people leverage LinkedIn to start building? that network, keep those connections going, so that if anything happens, they make sure that they know a guy or a girl that knows a guy or a girl that could
Mhm.
potentially help them in their hour of need.
I have so many answers for you on
Oh, go for
that.
it. I'm all
So
ears.
for starters, what I would say is for those listening and you have a pen or, and a piece of paper, write down this ABCs of networking. Always be connecting. I didn't invent that. It came from someone else, but always be connecting because you never know when or where that next opportunity will come from, right? So think of this. You're on the LinkedIn platform with your profile. One is you need to maximize your profile for keywords to be found in the future. And that's like a whole nother topic is maximizing your profile. But you also want to be connecting with other like-minded people, other professionals that are industry specific, functionally specific, up and down from you, so that you're building a healthy network. I'm not saying accept every connection request. If you're getting fake profile requests, bots, other stuff, don't do that. Please don't do that. But we're connected through 3 degrees of separation. So because with my executive search hat on, I'm connected to Talents Group. And so my network gives all of my team over there 2 more degrees of separation beyond me to find people. So I want leaders and executives connected to me, whether I actually know them or not. So I have
Yeah.
4,000 connections, but I have 11,000 followers, which is great. That's based on my content that I put out. So one thing that people mistake is I have to know every person. You don't, right? What you want to
Yeah.
do is to be able to expand your own reach now beyond a couple degrees, and then people to be able to find you. Now, you specifically asked, how do you go about really utilizing LinkedIn for yourself? My answer is thought leadership. So to me, thought leadership is coming up with a couple of topics that you feel comfortable talking with other people about on LinkedIn. And it doesn't have to be something that you're the deepest expert in the whole world, right? It could be, let's say I'm a chief marketing officer, I'm in the marketing space. It could be topics functionally related to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a leader, it might be things on leadership development, mentorship, team development, anything related to leadership.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's some personal things that you could once in a while put out that you feel professionally good about, right? I don't advocate using LinkedIn for a lot of personal stuff. That's not me. But anyway, so what you want to do is come up with a strategy where you're just once in a while, start slow, twice a month, create a short form post, put in an image and invite people into a conversation about marketing or whatever that is. Tag people. When you read an article from someone that you really admire and they're talking about some topic that you can get behind, reach out, send them a connection request. I just read your article. It was amazing. I want to follow you. I would love to connect. Don't ask them for anything. Don't sell them anything. Just connect, because as you build up your connections, you never know when you want to circle back. I've circled back to authors 1 and 2 years later and said, hey, I've been following you now for 2 years. Would you allow me to interview you for, this particular
Mm-hmm.
topic? Then I showcase their thought leadership. And guess what happens? They're flattered. They help promote it, right? And so what is that? Co-thought leadership. Going
Yeah.
out there. I'm getting it's thought leadership by rubbing elbows and by proxy there,
Yeah.
right? So you want to engage in healthy conversations on LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't a fan of people that just have a dormant, profile.
Profile. Yeah.
And having a diverse network is the way to do it, so that when you need it, it is there. But if you don't build it, you won't have it in the emergency situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit upon something really important there. It's about being genuine, open, and honest on LinkedIn, because there is
Mhm.
so much fake on there. I mean, I can open up my LinkedIn profile any time of day and I'll have between 5 to 10 maybe more connection requests from people, and either they don't say
Mm,
anything, and I'm like, what?
the worst. The
Yeah, or they'll
worst.
say, "Hey, Roberto Rivilla, I saw that blah 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 and the Tailoring Talk podcast," and I'm just thinking, that's not my day job, dude. Like, you obviously have not read my profile, um, and so that gets put in the bin, and then other people
Yeah.
that are just suddenly just ramming whatever it is that they sell down your throat.
Sales
Another
funnel stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, another thing that I found sort of more recently is that, people ask, LinkedIn, I've got like however many hundreds of connections, and there's a lot of advice out there that says, when was the last time you spoke to any of your connections? And the answer is like never, because how the hell do you keep up with all of that? But then they
Well,
get
you
chastised for it.
don't.
But hey,
No, I mean that's ridiculous. That's not even possible. The
yeah,
way that you speak to people and the people that want to hear from you, and you have to just, pray with the algorithm because the algorithm works in your favor at times and it totally doesn't.
yeah,
Is if you're putting out quality content and you build up a following, and even if they don't connect, they're following you, then you are sharing and showcasing thought leadership. And guess what? If you're found, like recruiters land on you and they're like, wow, this looks like an interesting person, what are they going to do? They're going to look at your headline. They're going to read your about summary. They're going to skim your work history. And then they're going to go down and look and see, have you been posting anything? Do you interact with people? Are you a leader? Are you sharing your information with people?
yeah. Exactly. The other thing, I was I listened to so many podcasts. I'm like, it's just, I have this voracious appetite for listening to people's conversations. Um, but on Darren Kidd's podcast yesterday, he was talking to a couple who have just absolutely blown up on Instagram and so on, all of a sudden. But, they were saying they weren't an overnight success. It took years and years and years of
Mhm.
consistency. And
Mhm.
they were saying the other thing that you need to remember, it doesn't matter what platform you're on, take LinkedIn as the
Mhm.
example because that's more pertinent to what we're talking about right now, is that just because people don't like or comment doesn't mean they're not watching you. And you never know when
You
someone
never know.
suddenly will reach out. Another tenuous Intel link, but genuine
Mhm.
example recently was one of my newer clients. He apparently had been following me for a few years. I'd never seen him on my radar. I'd never noticed this name, like anything, comment on anything, or whatever. And suddenly one day he booked an appointment via our online thing. And I said to him, "How did you find out about me?" And he said, and he's a exec partner at IBM. That was the tenuous Intel link. Um, and he
Yeah.
said, I've been following you for a few years. I wasn't ready uh, for bespoke tailoring, but I've just been
Sure.
promoted and I've got myself into a role where it's now time. And I decided a few years ago, because I love your content, I decided that you were going to be the guy that I wanted to take care of me. But I had
See
no
all
idea
the
he was watching.
breadcrumb trails, Robert. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. See? Yeah, that's what it's all about. And for the most part, the people that are watching my content, pardon me, they're also not commenting because they're probably not tipping their hand that they're watching my content. Because if you're a leader in a company, you're concerned that people are like, "Ooh, she's following, Gina
yeah,
Riley. Are they gonna and that's not necessarily the case because I'm connected to all these other people who are active on LinkedIn. And if you
yeah,
even thought about it for a minute, we're all just interacting and commenting on each other's things. It's not about, oh, now they're going to hire me.
yeah. But you see,
Yeah.
doing this stuff early enough, and I guess it's never too late to start, but what it does is it just gives you that. Again, I use another one of my recent guests, uh, and John Mendez, and he's such a great kid, really. He's like, I want to adopt him. But he said just by saying yes and by networking as much as I can, I've got myself into a
Mhm.
position where I always know someone that knows someone, whatever it is that I need in life. And to bring it back to the
Mhm.
conversation we're having today, when you're talking about career transition and you find yourself either needing someone to guide you through a transition, because maybe you're not in a perilous situation. Maybe it's a great thing that's happened where someone's walked along and stopped by your desk and said, hey, an opening's just, we're going to look to move you up. And you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's awesome. But how the hell? Well, then
Yeah. And that's where even
maybe you look through your
leadership,
connections and you're
leadership
like,
coaches.
yeah. And you're like, who can help me with this? Oh, I'm connected with Gina Riley over in Portland and Oregon. This is what she specializes in. I read her articles. I'm going to reach out to her. And Gina's going to say, yeah, I'd love to help you with that. Suddenly you've got that help, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many interesting things that people can do to help propel them forward in their careers. And like you said at the very beginning, it might be a side step. It might be moving up. It might be moving out. Right. So I've worked with a couple of people I created a lesson in my program called Write and Pitch Your Own Job Description. And the reason why I scrambled to put this lesson together at the end of last year is I had two mid-career professionals. One, she was looking to leave her company, but they did a reorg. And she had an opportunity to move up from a frontline manager position into a manager of managers position. Now that sounded pretty juicy. And they were going to start to work cross-functionally versus in verticals, giving her a bigger purview, right? Very exciting. So I said, okay, let's swing for the fences. I want you to research any job description that looks like what they're developing because it hadn't been developed yet. So researching, pulling together other job descriptions, writing her own, and then working with the leadership team who wanted her to move up, pitching it around her skill set. So she moved up. So that's a successful career transition for, in my mind's eye.
Absolutely.
At the same time, another mid-career professional, he's aiming to move out. He's networking with startup companies, seeing if they need operations leadership and Lean Six Sigma background. So he locates this one company that's interested in him, but they don't have this role yet, but they're poised for growth. So we use my Write and Pitch Your Own Job Description lesson for him to go research the market, pull together some kind of a pitch, and then he pitched them. They offered him a job. It just wasn't the right job for him. He went on site, checked it out, and he had to turn it down. But again, I think that's another win is you can make your own magic in this world. And if you're crafting it, both of these people had already worked with me for a couple months. So they had their unique value proposition, the elevator pitch, they knew their strengths. And most importantly, they knew what they could do for the other company with their skills. So they were building that information around themselves.
Yeah. Back in the old days, people used to say, get yourself to college, university over here, we call it. Because it's not even so much about the education, it's about the network that you build while you're there. And life is all about who you know, not what you know, most of the time.
Yeah.
And, I think you fast forward to today, and with LinkedIn, certain social media, we've never had a greater opportunity to be able to build that pool of people, that we know, build our networks in a short space of time than we've ever had before. It's incredible.
Absolutely. That's why some people grow. I mean, it's not always about the flashiest thing to grow an audience. It can be topic-based that people can galvanize around. So how do you become a thought leader? You're a lightning rod or a conduit to that conversation. So you don't have to be the one posting a cat video to get people to follow you. They're not following you now for your professional expertise. But if you're, I'm following one or two people who are repeatedly putting out or regularly putting out information about chat GPT and AI. And I'm not an expert at all in this. I'm following them and I connected with them actually one-on-one just so that I could see their stuff in my feed more often. And even when I don't have time to read it, I like their content or put the little light bulb in, insight, because I'm teaching LinkedIn to send me their stuff. I want to see it.
Absolutely.
You have to be intentional.
Yeah. Side note, literally the episodes that I just put out. So I recorded with the guy I mentioned earlier, John Mendez, and he's a social media
Uh-huh.
expert. And he's also the host of a podcast called Walk to Wealth. And he's a great guy. Young man, just such an amazing self-starter. And literally on the recording, it was nearly 2 hours, Gina, nearly 2 hours. But right off the bat, it was like he was a machine gun loaded with like tips. So literally in the first few minutes, he'd given me about 10 or 12 of these kind of AI content creation applications, etc. I mean, it was like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
I recorded with him like 4 months ago. It's only now this past week that I've put his episodes out, and I never wait that long to get someone's episode out. I just couldn't work
Yeah.
out how to, and in the end, I chopped it up into three just over 30-minute segments because I didn't want
Right.
people to lose the messaging. But if you're kind
Awesome.
of trying to work that kind of world out, chat GPT and stuff, what
Yeah.
I now know, because I've started to utilize that AI thing in the last few
Yeah.
days, it's completely transforming my content creation.
I got to
Like
go listen to your podcast episodes.
you definitely right. So we were talking before we came on about the whole box of chocolates. You look at the menu, decide which
Oh,
flavors you like, and go for those. Those
yeah.
are the sweet treats that you need to get. So
Now,
yeah,
who was that again? Was that
John Mendez. So I just
John
released
Mendez? Okay.
so I released part one on Tuesday, part two
Okay.
today, and part three goes out next Tuesday. But
Got it.
those you
Okay.
definitely want to bring, like people I hope are using their notepad and pens while you're listening to Gina today. Yeah, thank you, Gina. Gina's just post-it noted that, and she's going to go off and make sure. Honestly, you need to write stuff down when you're listening to that kid. But I
I
learned,
will, or I'll type it out. Yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
learned so much. So yeah, so this last little bit, I want to, because I'll have some of my more mature listeners and clients listening, and they'll be thinking about a different type of transition, and that's standing on the precipice of long career. I've suddenly been asked to call all of my clients, tell them that I'm leaving and I'm retiring. But then
Mhm.
once I've done that exercise and I have my leaving due, what the hell do I do with the rest of my life?
Mm.
Because they have not,
That's tough.
yeah, they haven't had the time to think about it, to plan it, to maybe even discuss it with their spouses and their loved ones.
Right.
Because they'll tell me, right? Because I'll call them up and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, we talking about clothes for this season, and it's like, actually, I'm retiring in like 8 weeks' time, and so I still
Yeah.
will need you, but it will be a different part of the closet. But
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's exciting,
That's
congratulations.
super cool.
And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'm so glad you're so happy for me because, but I'm kind of feeling like I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I'm like,
Petrified.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
shouldn't you have figured that out before you told your firm that you wanted to retire?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, exactly. How do we help them, Gina? You're back.
You're back?
You're back.
My Wi-Fi's strong right now. I don't know what happened.
So yeah,
You know,
so how do we help these guys and ladies deal with that?
yeah. First of all, it's confronting, and when you haven't even had time to get your head around it because you're trying to exit gracefully, right? And maybe, I mean, at a certain age too, we have maybe children in college or getting married. I mean, there's all these things, and or maybe aging parents that you're dealing with. Like, it
Yeah,
depends, right, where you're at. Um, I still think that it does go back to centering yourself around what your gifts are and now what your interests are, right? Which might have shifted a little bit. One thing that I think that I see often is the person that starts to reach that retirement age, they think, I think now I'm going, and they're from corporate. I think I'm going to transition over to nonprofit. I'm going to give back, right? That is a career transition, and it is not an easy one. And so there's a lot of assumptions that are made, like, oh, that will be easy. But you have to realize there's been people that have grown up leading nonprofits that the first question is, where have you been? Have you volunteered? How do we know this is your passion, whatever that lane is? So it's very interesting to talk to people who like kind of show up at the door of the nonprofit and go, I'm ready to be a leader here. There's a lot of biases there as well. They're not going to just open up their arms and go, welcome. We know you know what you're doing. So I say to the person that's transitioning into that next phase, and it's maybe not retirement, take a break. Go get centered. Go figure out who you are now and think about, what do you want your next 5, 10, 20 years to be? And build in like the physical, spiritual, mental aspects of what you want in your life, because you should be able to have a little time and you should reflect.
Yeah. Wow. It was so funny you talk about the nonprofit, because I get some of my clients that are like, yeah, I think I've been in the corporate space for my entire career, and I'd like to go and do some nonprofit stuff, and exactly what you said, give back, right? And I'm thinking to myself, a lot of nonprofits, they're very ethically grounded, and so because of the nature of what they do, and you're coming from a corporate background. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
I'm going to
Money,
come
money,
in and I'm
money.
going to rescue you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so what? You're going to turn up at the door like you're some big shot, like, hey, I was CEO of whatever or whatever bank, and I'm here to save you. They're not necessarily, dude. I think you need to kind of roll back a little bit and just rethink this for a second, because they're going to be kind of skeptical. They're going to want to know like whether you really are passionate about their cause, and therefore if you're
Right.
going to stay the distance, not just kind of come in for a couple of weeks and then say, oh, actually this isn't for me.
It's
So
not
what you
well.
said,
There's another issue for those of, and I'm putting myself in this camp. I grew up at Intel. I have blue blood in my veins. The Intel blue, right? We all bring our own upbringing from these companies and our ways of being in the culture. And there's perceptions about us based on those company cultures. Intel's going to have a specific stereotype, right? Yeah. Nike people might have a stereotype. Well, you bring that with you, whether you embody the stereotype or not. And so you have to overcome those biases, and you need to lead with humility. You have to lead with humility.
Yeah. And that's why it's important for you to take a break. And like Gina said, you recenter yourself and work out who you are now and what you want now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when you settle down and you get grounded, you communicate it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really, really hoping that some of my clients, and I'm thinking of very specific people right now, have listened to this, and this has really helped them. Gina, thank you so, so much. I hope we can connect offline. There are some people that I want you to meet from the podcasting community who I think would get on like a house on fire with you, and who I think you could bring some tremendous value to. So I will make sure that I connect you with them. Now, one thing that we need to make sure we do is we need to let everybody know how they can connect with you. So you have your website, GinaRileyConsulting.com. You have a free 30-minute masterclass and workbook for people who want to start building their career transition strategy and start planning today. So I'll make sure I have that link in the show notes. You also write for a particular magazine. Tell us about that.
I do. I write for a magazine called industryexpertmagazine.com. It's produced by Mary Henderson out of Australia. There are at least between 12 and 15 of us that contribute, all based on different topics on entrepreneurship. Mine is on executive career transition. I've written over 35 articles. So it's every month, 20 hours of love goes into sharing information that's, I think, helpful. I have among that a series of 8 articles called How Your Next Executive Role Finds You, where I interviewed 8 different executives on their career transition and super inspirational stories. So those are things that people can, there's so much free information out there for people that, want to take the time. And then my masterclass is a great place to start.
Fantastic. No, I'll make sure. So I'm going to look those articles up, and then we'll see. Will I be able to kind of take extracts and excerpts from those to share?
Oh,
I can do
sure.
that,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Mary just started the website just this year. She morphed it from Authority 5.0 to this new magazine. So she's slowly uploading. Many of the articles are on my own consulting website, the Executive Role series. All 8 are there. And you're welcome to that. And I can also email them to you.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. You just let me know.
Yeah. This has been such a great afternoon because we are recording on St. Patrick's Day, right? And I know from your surname, you're going to be out.
Oh, we're heading out tonight. Oh.
Yeah. So I've had Gina on. It's St. Patrick's Day. It has been a dark, gloomy, rainy, non-stop rainy day in London. But as we started recording, she brought some of that Oregon sun and it is shining bright right now, just before sunset. So yeah, it's been the perfect end to a Friday over here for me. Have you had fun?
So much fun. So much fun. It's only 10 o'clock, but I could probably do my Guinness now. I don't know.
Well,
Guinness and eggs, right?
Yeah. Well, like we say over here, it's 11 o'clock somewhere in the world, right? So there you go.
Head to the pub. Yep.
Exactly. Gina, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining Gina and I today. Hit the share button to send this episode on to someone you know who could benefit from the things that Gina shared. You can find Tailoring Talk on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast for updates on new episodes. And I love feedback, so email me at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to support the show further, buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Rivilla, or simply hit that star rating on your iTunes, Spotify platform, wherever you get your shows. Have a great week. Be good to each other, and I'll see you on the next one.